Welcome to Inside Storm. In the previous episode, we saw various eminent thought leaders from the diverse fields of art and business share their meaningful insights.
More leaders.
In this episode, we show you some more sharp and valuable insights. The first insight session was on the topic Conceive, and the eminent thought leader from the world of art sharing his insight is Arnab Goswami, and from the world of business is Sam Balsara.
First insight is go with your gut feeling. The whole world says it won't work. You don't need a business plan to make it work. You just need the gut feel that it's going to work.
So my first insight would be, it's an advantage to recognize that you are at a disadvantage.
Too much planning is bad. Don't plan your next 5 years or 10 years.
Okay, my second insight, if it's safe, it's risky.
Yeah, my third insight is whatever you do, make people think. Just make people think. The greatest thought is that which enters somebody's mind. And so whatever you do as an artist, as a businessman, anything you do, enter people's minds. We are in the business, in the world of media, into entering people's minds. And you enter people's minds and their hearts will follow. So we are in the fight for the mind space.
Okay, my third insight, the most important skill in life is the ability to sell.
You know, the rule spoils the journey, because the rule in journalism was don't speak your mind, don't talk, report, be factual, don't go beyond the facts, right? Just restrict yourself to the facts and keep it to that. That was the rule in 1995. I find that 21 years later, that rule is obsolete. Doesn't mean that facts are immaterial, facts should be compromised. No. But in today's day and age, opinion counts. And the world is opening up. Everybody has a point of view. Around 7 or 8 years, we took the fairly bold decision of changing the editorial nature of the program I do in the way it just got constructed. You know, you can't have a very structured dialogue, so you begin speaking up. And you begin giving your own point of view. But, you know, it works because it is more free. It is more unfettered. It is not restrained. It helps you open up. And so what if it was the golden rule in journalism, never to express your point of view? That rule wasn't set in stone. It's not a religious edict. You changed it. Has journalism become worse for that? I don't think so. If I had just done journalism the way it was taught to me in 95, then I would not be here today. I'd perhaps be retiring. Sam?
So my first insight was, it's an advantage to recognize that you're at a disadvantage. I've kind of arrived at this insight the hard way after 28 years at Madison. Most often in business, I find the number one player gets a little pompous, gets a little immodest, takes things for granted, takes his success for granted, takes his client for granted, and all of it comes with this money, power, and number one position and all of that. And I think that brings about a certain amount of downfall. So therefore, you know, I constantly tell my people that, look, we are operating at a huge disadvantage. And this insight is reinforced every time we have been in a tough situation and we come out winning, because we know that we have worked much harder and we have worked much smarter than our competition did. Because fortunately for us, there is no other way to survive.
Yeah, that's great, Sam. I actually would like to follow up from that. And, you know, I said earlier that I think too much planning is bad. And we like to all become safe behind numbers and feel that we are going to succeed because the numbers look good on a screen. And then I also said that we are in the game of entering people's minds. I spoke about going from the gut. Let me give you a simple example from a life experience. It's unimaginable that you can run a channel from Mumbai. And Delhi is the political capital of India. That's where the news is. This is the only news organization at a national level running out of Mumbai, out of what used to be a cotton mill shed in Lower Parel. We had the least number of people. We spent the least money. My staff size was 1/3 of what my competitors were. Then why did we win? A simple story which we said always. We said, in a story between an elephant, a horse, and a deer, what would you be? I said, be the deer. And I said this in an editorial meeting. I said, be the deer, because the fantastic thing about the deer is it wins not because of size. It doesn't win because of having an early start. It wins because you cannot predict its direction. It pirouettes around. It has the ability to change direction. So a horse can't run through a forest, but a deer can. So, my life experience, because I was saying all these things to motivate my extremely confused team of people who were the youngest of all, sitting in Mumbai, and everybody said, you're not times now, you're times when. You're ridiculed. And, nobody knew me. These were big guys, all the other big anchors, right? So the destiny is against you. How do you change the direction? I understood this little value, so I thought I'd merge my two thoughts earlier, which is too much planning is bad, and keep them engaged, enter people's minds. And I wanted to merge that with what my very respected friend on the other side said about business, because I think, Sam is also as much an artist as any of us. I think you'll understand where I'm coming from, Sam, on that.
So my second insight was, if it's safe, it's risky. Whenever we have tried to play very safe, we have failed. Whenever we have said, this looks like a risky proposition, let's not touch it, we have let a golden opportunity go by. On the other hand, when we have taken a risk, no doubt, a calculated, well thought through risk, not always, but more often than not, we have succeeded. Now, the most powerful example I have from my book relates to one of my larger and older clients, Procter & Gamble. After winning the AOR, I was told we would have to hire 15 experienced media professionals to handle 100% of the P&G business instead of the erstwhile 60%, and we would earn 2.5% instead of 10%. A disaster of a proposition, anybody would say, from an agency perspective. Something told me that it looks like a risky proposition from a financial and monetary point of view today, but look at the reputation, the honor, the pizzazz, the heft that it'll bring. I went ahead with the decision, told P&G, okay, it's acceptable to us. And as some of you know, the rest is history. We now run not so large, but not so small either, media alone business. So I say to you, if it's safe, it's risky.
Yeah. Wow. That's a great story, Sam. I want to take up from what you've said. And one of my insights was to go with your gut. Now, actually, I want to revise that a little bit, because there's a story to going with your gut, and there's a story, the other part of you is being paranoid. We are humans, and in the newsroom, on the one side, you want to go with your gut. You want to break the story. You want to be first. You want to get the biggest. You want to do everything first. And you kill to get there. And on the other side, you are paranoid. Something should not go wrong. Because it's an unforgiving business. You can work hard for 20 years, but one big strategic mistake, and your credibility, your editorial guidance, the position you have, defamation cases, everything can go wrong forever. And I've been constantly battling between my gut and being paranoid. This battle is very important for all good professionals. But eventually, gut must win. Paranoia must lose.
Yeah, my third insight was on the ability to sell. Many experiences have taught me that in our business, actually, creativity is not as difficult to come by as is commonly believed. Quality of a product is not so difficult to come by, even in a country like India. But the ability to sell a creative product or the ability to sell a good quality product is in actually serious short supply in our country and in most countries. I feel there are more Cleos and Cannes lions waiting today in creative directors' portfolio bags because many a great campaign could not be sold. On a related point, I must say that stature considerably helps in selling one's idea, and the lack of it hinders it.
Look at all of this, and the one insight that I realize is it's time for some really solid disruption. I'm looking for the next big disruption in the world of media, and particularly in the world of news media. And for me, that disruption will be new organizations, new people, new thinking, new ideas, using the confluence of high potency mediums like television and digital to break through the clutter, not at a national, but also potentially in a medium term at an international level.
Okay, I would say I am somewhere beginning to come to the conclusion that there is no such thing as absolute honesty. There are actually shades of dishonesty. Unfortunately, we all have to live with this shades of gray, as they say. And I think at some level, I think your ability to succeed in life depends on your ability to deal with these shades of gray.
Time for a very short break. After the break, we will bring you insights from Malini Agarwal and Roshan Abbas.
Dare to dream, but do to deliver.
Welcome back to Inside Storm. The next session was on the topic scale, and the thought leaders sharing their insights are Malini Agarwal and Roshan Abbas.
Dare to dream, but do to deliver.
Hashtag mind the gap. Some of the biggest brands in the world were created by fulfilling a need, a craving with their own signature individuality.
Hire your replacement. If you want to scale, hire your replacement or groom your replacement so you can focus on what has not been done.
It's great to scale fast, but it's ultimately about how long you last. Iconic brands are designed for longevity. Hashtag quality, hashtag passion, hashtag love.
Start with spirit, supplement with systems, and you've then got to find the balance between the two, between the system and the spirits if you want to scale.
And for me, number 3, hashtag social media. Social media must be social. Hashtag engage. Okay, so my first insight is about minding the gap. What I realized actually growing up all over the world was that people had a very different perception of India than the variety of things that exist in India. I've lived here now for 20 years in India, and I realized that nobody really talks about the other side. There's so much enterprise, so many entrepreneurs, so many smart people, like all the people in this room, doing crazy things, whether it's Bollywood, fashion, lifestyle, luxury, you name it, we have it. And the one thing I noticed, especially in journalism, the kind I do, which is entertainment, that there was no real voice. There was no homegrown brand that had a voice. So I really wanted to create that individual, that personality that people felt represented the young global Indian. And that's why Miss Malini.
In my first insight, when I say dare to dream but do to deliver, I meet a lot of people who come to you with this really exciting idea but not the ability to deliver. They don't want to put themselves out there. When I was on radio and I started doing television, there was nothing called as professional event management. You just had a bunch of aggregators. I found that gap, but I had to physically be present. I didn't just go and sell that idea to the client. I had to be there every day. There are days when I've been backstage making sure that the last pixel has been focused onto the screen and then shaved backstage at a Gillette show, come on stage and hosted it. Many of the people who worked with me said, we stuck around because you didn't just share a dream, you were around with us to make it deliver. I was there at 4 a.m. and people appreciated that. People liked the fact that you're there. It's important to share that goal, to share the dream, but be around to deliver it.
Okay, so it's really great to scale fast, but like I was saying, longevity is key because you can be a brand that scales and then you just disappear, and then what was the point of that? Quality is so important. So you have to be really brutal with yourself. So sometimes late at night you're writing something, like let me just get it done and put it up. But I always have to have that check. Read it again. Would you read this? Is this interesting? Is it compelling? Is it shareable? Is it entertaining? And if it doesn't hit those benchmarks, you scrap it and you start again. And that's really what quality is about. You also have to be trustworthy. And I feel like you need to stand for something, which is also part of, being unique and filling a gap. Choose quality sometimes over profit. And that's where it's really important that you close the loop on that and scale, but scale in a way that people find it memorable.
My second insight about hiring your replacement or grooming your replacement so you can focus on what has not been done. I've always found that finding your own replacement leaves me free to do a lot more. My first aim is always to find my replacement. And the minute I find that, I am happy because they can focus on one aspect. I can move on to certain other aspects which will be required as you scale. So I think it's really important to find people who have the thing possibly which you don't have, to groom them, to develop them, but find your replacement so you can be redundant in that role and you discover a new role for yourself.
So my final insight is about social media, because clearly I live my life online. I actually do. People always ask me though, how did I build a brand around a person? And one of the things I always tell brands is that to succeed on the internet, you must have a personality. You must be someone, you must feel like someone. So instead of feeling like a brand and, just someone who's going to sell you something and a banner on a page, you want to feel fun. And, people will then ask you or ask me, then how do you scale, Malini, if your brand is built around a person? And this is the whole point. The reason I built this anime, this girl, I don't know if you've seen her, is because one, she's going to age a lot better than I will. And I feel that Miss Malini now no longer is just about me. I'm trying to create a place of mini-me's, mini Miss Malinis. And Miss Malini now represents and feeds the global millennial Indian. Right now, we feed 4 million unique visitors and 6 million on social media. But think about this. Do you want to know what the size of my market is? There are probably 500 million Indians online today. And 75% of them are under the age of 35. You want to talk about scale? That's potential for scale.
हिंदुस्तान में जब कुछ नया शुरू करते हैं, जब कोई चारा नहीं होता तो भाईचारे पे कंपनियां चलती हैं. दोस्ती यारी पे चलती हैं, spirit पे चलती हैं. So when you start up, a lot of it is just sheer spirit. All the startups, so many young innovators, and whenever I meet them, what I'm looking for is the spirit. Do they have that spirit to succeed? But as you go along and as you start scaling, suddenly spirit needs to be supplemented by systems. And that's where I find a lot of startup failure, and I've often seen a lot of creative people also having this failure, which is that you need to find systems. You can't go from one end of the spectrum to the other end. You need to find that happy balance in between spirit and system. Within that framework, to find the right systems and then find that balance is critical for scale.
I think the one thing that I'm learning listening to you, that the brands that I think that scale are actually, it's unique. The brands that scale are the ones that have the ego to want to leave a legacy behind them. So it's not about just me, me, me. It's like, look at what I'm going to do. I'm going to build the next me. And I think that's amazing.
I said this about Malini, and this is something really important that I believe, and I've said this to people. I love that what she does with a happiness quotient that radiates from her and her team. Not just her entire team. They've got this almost, this halo around them of happiness. You want to build a great brand, you want to scale. to supplement that spirit, bring in that halo of happiness, do stuff that is meaningful, do stuff that wants to leave a legacy behind.
The next session featured Radha Kapoor from the business world, giving her insights on the topic business.
The future belongs to those with a whole new mind, artists, innovators, designers, storytellers, and mostly right-brainers. The second one, I believe that design, innovation, creativity, and entrepreneurship is what I call DICE, will play an important role in transforming the Indian economy. Third one being, good design may not always make commercial sense, but going forward, every business must make great design sense. Going back to the first one, I'll tell you a little story. I wanted to pursue a career in design. This was, almost 10, 15 years ago. So I actually took on this, career challenge of studying design and innovation, at the Parsons School of Design in New York. And of course, design being a big taboo and coming from a very professional family, it wasn't probably the right thing to do. So I think after sort of, studying and reaching my fourth final year of my thesis, I kind of, I think, had that enlightenment that, wow, design could actually do wonders. So I actually wanted to sort of, use that for the education space because I felt that the root of all problems, especially in India, all start from, our high illiteracy rates, unemployment rates. So hence, I sort of, went on this bandwidth of like exploring rural India where there were communication barriers and how could we sort of get the message out and also, teach, just rural schools treat children through creative learning methods. So we'd actually formed a sort of a gaming strategy to teach them, which ended up being really rewarding and was very meaningful. And hence, I felt that I want to sort of take this on and actually form a business model where we could form the right ecosystem. So again, taking on the cue on design, innovation, creativity, and entrepreneurship, how do we foster entrepreneurship and innovation? So hence, I actually build an ecosystem. So it wasn't just an education hub, but also I think sort of having spent some time in the Silicon Valley, doing some research, understanding how businesses were thriving there with these crazy startup and billion-dollar valuations. How can we build a similar Silicon Valley here in home in Mumbai, in the heart of the city in Lower Parel? So of course we took up the infrastructure. We collaborated with my alma mater, which was Parsons School of Design, and we started the accelerator program as well. Where we sort of have a makers lab. We have our own in-house talent and people sort of creating new ideas. We've also launched a virtual reality center, and we're probably the first ones in India to have it. And the lastly, I think good design may not always make commercial sense, but going forward, every business must make great sense because I think people think, design is very expensive or it's something which is kind of, I think, sprinkled on top at the end, more for the aesthetics, and more for the visual sort of representation. But I think that's wrong. I think design is something which has to sort of be right at the beginning, and through a design thinking approach, which is actually, I think, recognizing what the problems are, where the problems lie, and then coming up with the solutions. Understanding the end user. I think being able to do what we call in our terms ethnography, understanding and empathizing with with your consumer. Because at the end of the day, the consumer is God, and you have to sort of, cater to their whims and fancies. It's great to, I think, also have these movements like Make in India and, Startup India. So I believe now brands in India are, themselves are kind of, using design innovation, as a common tool, to sort of, build more value creation, and sort of, forward the economic development, of India. I believe design can do wonders and can, I mean, we can be used as a really powerful tool to impact, social lives, and major issues which we face day to day.
I just want to thank all of you, and I also want to take this chance to thank AIMA, and look forward to seeing you again next year. Thank you.